Welcome to chapter 18 of the book of Revelation. 17, we saw the harlot and mentioned it was a city in the 7 hills or 7 mountains, Jerusalem as I see it. And now it turns to a more precise description of this city. It begins in verse 1. And after these things I saw another angelon descending from out of the Uranu, the heaven, having great authority, and the earth was enlightened from his glory. So this was not just a normal angel. There's such a thing as a normal angel. This was an angel that had great authority, and the earth was enlightened from his glory. Now, how exactly what this angel was doesn't say if this is Michael or if this is an archangel or it's another kind of an angel. But we saw this angel before in the book of Revelation in our past seminars. In 5:2 it says, "And I saw a strong angel proclaiming in a great voice, 'Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seal?'" And then in 10:1 and 2 it says, "And I saw a strong angel coming down from out of the heaven, wearing a cloud, and the rainbow upon his head, and his face was as the sun, and his feet as columns of fire." And here, the same type of a thing. Now, some people would probably say that this was Jesus, possibly could be a messenger. An angel is a messenger, and it could be a messenger, because in this case, he is delivering a message. And the message is, he cried out in strength of voice, saying, is fallen, Babylon the Great, and has become home of demons." Babylon the Great. Now, the Babylon that is mentioned in history is first mentioned in the Bible in 2 Kings 17:24. And then after that, Babylon is mentioned in the books of 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Psalms, Isaiah, mainly in Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Micah, and Zechariah. Babylon was a city, but yet it was used in many of these places. As you go through the Old Testament, it was a condition, even though it was a city at that time, but it was destroyed. It is now in rubble. The war just occurred within the last 10 years in Iraq, in the United States, and certain forces went in there to fight Islamic extremists, and Babylon it's just on the ground. Now, Babylon the Great here, it can't be the Babylon of the past, because that Babylon is completely destroyed. So for it to fall, it would have to be a new Babylon that is being built for the future, or an allegory of another city, which you can allegorize any other city, or it is an allegory of Jerusalem, which I believe it is, because verses 20 and 24 will give us the clues that that's exactly what it is. So it's a home of demons, and a prison of every unclean spirit, and a prison of every unclean and detested bird. So it's an unclean place. Jerusalem of today is not anywhere as near as unclean as the capital of Israel, which allows homosexual parades to go on for a week in Tel Aviv, the capital. But apparently by the time this is happening here, Jerusalem is in bad shape. Jerusalem is run by the Antichrists, people that don't believe in Jesus. Probably by this time, as the beast takes over, it's going to be worse for anybody that is a Christian. And there probably won't even be very many people there, if there was any. And then it continues, "For from out of the rage of the wine of her harlotry," and the harlotry we went through in the last chapter, Israel's harlotry is mentioned so many places in the Old Testament. that all the nations are given to drink. And the kings of the earth committed harlotry with her. So apparently this nation at the time, Jerusalem, it's all has to do with international trade, and the merchants of the earth were enriched from out of the power of her indulgence. So apparently this city is an economic power that people throughout the world come to it. Now, it doesn't mean it's selling everything there. The Dutch people in Holland were wealthy traders. They didn't actually have the things in Holland. It was a very small country. But yet they controlled the commerce of quite a bit of the world at one time, as did certain city-states in Italy. So the possibility of a Jerusalem of the future having this kind of power is not infeasible. And I heard another voice from out of the heavens saying, so now he hears this voice, come forth from out of her, my people, that you should not partake with her sins. So there are people that he's calling to come out. Right now it's called Aliyah, or Aliyah, hope I'm not mispronouncing it, but it is a process of the country of Israel to bring back the Jews from out the world back into Israel. They call it Aliyah. This will be the opposite. This is to get out, that you should not partake with her sins. I have not been to Israel, Jerusalem, and I have no intentions to go there. Not that I don't want to go there, and I think it's something bad would have to me. I don't think this condition it's talking about here is what it's like now, but I think it's going to be something of the future. And so get out of there, that you should not receive from out of her calamities, plegon, plagues. For her sins cleaved as far as the heaven, and God remembered her, the offenses of her. So God sees what's going on. The chosen people rejected God in so many places in the Old Testament that God finally took them out, and it doesn't look like they have changed any after he brings them back another time. And he continues, and it says, render to her as also she rendered to you. Now, I'm not exactly sure to you who to you is. The people that were there, that were mistreated by the Jews possibly and left. So then if they're in a position, then render to her, or just using this as an allegory of a condition, more or less. This condition, whoever is affected, double up to her, double according to her works. And this is basically what this city deserves by ignoring the things of God and of Christ. In the cup which she mixed, you mix to her double. Whoa. So much as she glorified herself and lived indulgently, so for that much you give to her torment and mourning. So what is promised or shown to be happening to this city, if it's Jerusalem, is not pleasant. That would be torment and mourning. This has happened to the Jews in so many places in their history. They were taken out of different countries, and Spain and Russia moved them around. Of course, in Hitler and Germany, the Holocaust, many were slain, killed, burned alive, and gassed, all sorts of terrible things. But yet it didn't change. For she says that I sit a queen. I am not a widow, and in no way shall I see mourning. On account of this, in one day shall come her calamities, death and mourning and hunger. So this is what I mentioned, I believe that Jerusalem will be destroyed again. How much, then afterwards is going to be rebuilt, because the last 10 chapters of the book of Ezekiel talk about a rebuilding of a temple, and the prince coming. Could be during the 1,000-year reign, which we'll get to here in a few chapters. And she shall be incinerated by fire. Now, I don't think it was talking about the Jerusalem of the time of the Romans here. although it was incinerated by fire. For the Lord God judging her is strong, and the kings of the earth shall weep for her and beat their chests over her. Now, the Romans were the ones that destroyed Jerusalem, but here God is destroying it in all the countries that are dealing with her are sad to see this because they're having commerce with her, and not like the Jerusalem of the Romans. And the ones committing harlotry with her, they're bowing to other gods. That's what harlotry means, living indulgently. Whenever they should see the smoke of her burning fire, standing from far off on account of the fear of her torment, saying, Woe, woe to the great city Babylon, the strong city, for in 1 hour came your judgment. So all of a sudden it was whammo, the things happening too. If it's Jerusalem, another city, it's all happens instantly almost. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no one buys of their merchandise anymore. They're not sad because of the city or the people in the city. People that are buying and selling, that are dealing with these merchants and merchandise, reminds me of Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice. There was a Jew, Shylock, and so the merchandise is a big thing here, because it says merchandise of gold and of silver, precious stone and of pearl, and of linen and purple goods, and of silk and of scarlet goods, and all wood of pine, every item of ivory, and every item from out of most precious wood, of brass and of iron and marble, cinnamon, food, incenses, perfume, liquids, frankincense, things that smell, have an aroma, wine, olive oil, fine flour, grain, cattle and sheep, horses and coaches, automobiles, cars, whatever, and bodies, that's like slaves, and the souls of men. So all these things, this city is trading in. And the autumn fruits of the desire of your soul are departed from you. And all the lustrous things, the bright things, are destroyed from you, and no longer in any way shall you find them. So it's a total destruction of this city and the things that go on with it, with other people and commerce. The merchants of these things who were enriched from her, again the merchants, shall stand from far off because of the fear of her torment, weeping and mourning. Now, I'm not exactly what the torment is. It's hard to say if there will be people there that are going to be tormented and they'll see them, but yet they can't leave. I don't know. And these people standing off will be saying, Woe, woe, oi, voi, voi, to the great city, the one wearing fine linen and purple, scarlet, and being gilded with gold and precious stone and pearls. More things that are in this city, with all this luxury. For in 1 hour was made desolate so great a wealth. Again, in 1 hour. We are constantly given that sign, picture that this happens almost instantly, very quickly. And every navigator and all upon the boat sailing, and seamen, and as many as work the sea, stood from far off. So they could, now the Mediterranean would be the closest place, the closest sea, outside of the smaller seas, which I don't think it's talking about, could be. They see this destruction from far off. They can find out about it. And cried out, seeing the smoke of her burning fire, saying, What is like unto that great city? And they threw dust upon their heads and cried out, weeping and mourning and saying, Whoa, whoa, the great city in which we were enriched, all the ones having the ships in the sea, from out of her valuables, for in 1 hour she was made desolate. So they're going to be crying. They're losing all their money because of the merchandising of this city and this. Now, the allegory could also be, I suppose, this is not a city, it's a state of merchandise, of a trade, worldwide trade. But it seems like some trade is going to continue, so I don't see that as being what it's talking about here, because it these other ones are not being destroyed. It's just that one city. Be glad over her, O heaven, and holy ones and apostles and prophets, for God judged your case from out of her. Now there we go. This is why I believe it's Jerusalem, because it mentions the holy ones, the apostles. I mentioned before that Jesus was not allowed for a prophet to die outside of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem, Jerusalem, I wanted to put you under my wings as a hen. You wanted not. You're going to be desolate until I come back. The holy ones, apostles, and prophets. Well, to me, it's just obvious it's talking about Jerusalem. Well, you could argue Rome, I suppose, but that didn't have the prophets from the Old Testament in Rome. Yes, maybe a few apostles went there, but not all this. The apostles were all in Jerusalem, and the holy ones. So to me, it's Jerusalem. And one strong angel, again, lifted a stone as a great millstone. And those giant stones, sometimes are 4, 5, 6 foot tall, that had a hole in the middle, and they had a bar that went through, and on both sides, they had animals pulling it and turning it around in circles, and it crushed the grain and turned it into flour. Sometimes slaves would walk around and do that instead. And so he cast this great millstone in the sea, saying, "Thus with impulse shall the great city Babylon be thrown, and in no way shall be found anymore." Now the argument there could be great. Well, it should not be going to be found anymore, but we know the Jerusalem. No, it doesn't mention any Jerusalem in the book of Revelation, a city of Jerusalem. It only mentions the New Jerusalem. So that's why I think it's Babylon. And now the holy city, it calls the holy city. I'm not sure in the last 10 chapters of Ezekiel, I should have looked it up, but if it mentions the name Jerusalem in that area or not, or it just talks about a temple and a city. You have to look it up. You can look it up and find out. It'd be interesting to find out. And a sound of harpists and musicians and pipers and trumpeters in no way shall be heard in you any more. And every craftsman of every craft in no way shall be found in you any more, no more building. And the sound of a millstone in no way shall be heard in you any more. So there won't be any commerce of foods. And the light of a lamp in no way shall shine in you any more. And the voice of the groom and the bridegroom in no way shall be heard in you any more. It's going to be a sad place to be. For your merchants, again, the merchandise, the people selling, were the great men of the earth. For by your sorcery, all the nations were misled. And so you have to look at the world and see who are the merchants, the greatest merchants of the world, and try to figure out if they're in any one group. And if they are, how are they able to do all this merchandising and accumulate all this financial wealth in the world? Sorcery, pharmakia. Sorcery, it has to do with the evil one, I believe. And all the nations were misled to going along with this merchandising, this sorcery of all this money that these merchants are able to gather at the expense of many people and cause poverty throughout the world because of these people gathering all this wealth. It's a sin. It's terrible, people that are doing that. And it's throughout the world. And then here, the final place where I believe it's Jerusalem again. And in her, the city, the blood of prophets and holy ones was found, and of all the ones being slain upon the earth. Well, now, no one city could have all the ones being slain upon the earth because they're talking about forever. But the ones being slain, I believe it's talking about the holy ones, they're responsible for it. And this is how I see it, because otherwise you couldn't have a city that has everybody only one place. So this is an allegory, but in her the blood of the prophets and holy ones was found, and the blood of Berechiah, son of Zechariah, I believe it mentions, killed between the holy place at the altar. The blood of the prophets mentions that in Jeremiah. You can read Jeremiah and see all the things that were going on in Jerusalem And I believe that this condition of Jerusalem at this future time is going to be worse than it was even at the time of Jeremiah. The things that happened to Israel, if you read the last part of Jeremiah, are nothing compared to when the beast is in that area, in that city, and the destruction that happens worldwide. Chapter 19, finally, we get into the better news, the good news, the Alleluia. The Alleluia in chapter 19 is next, and I hope you'll join us in the good news and the wonderful things that we see from here on 19, 20, 21, and 22 in the next four chapters of the book of Revelation. And God bless.